Welcome to the November edition of North St. Paul Notes. I'm your host, Paul Anderson. Coming up in the next half hour, we're going to learn about the North Star Museum of Boy Scouting and Girl Scouting, which is located in downtown North St. Paul. Stay tuned, North St. Paul Notes is straight ahead. Hello and welcome to the November edition of North St. Paul Notes. We hope this show will keep you up to date on the news and events that are of interest to the residents of North St. Paul. The North Star Museum of Boy Scouting and Girl Scouting on 7th Avenue East is the only museum devoted to collecting, preserving, sharing, and interpreting the history of Boy Scouting and Girl Scouting in the Upper Midwest. With me today is the Executive Director of the museum, Claudia Nicholson. Welcome, Claudia.
Hi, Paul.
You were on the show way back when Bill Sandberg was the host. Mayor Sandberg was the host of the program.
Right around the time we came into town, yeah.
That's right. So that would have been
2005.
2005.
Yep.
And it's hard to believe that much time has gone by.
I know,
Yeah.
I know.
Anyway, I had mentioned to you something about that location, and I know you know what it was before you moved in, but before that, I remember growing up in that neighborhood, and on that location, or at that location, was a family home. It was set way back on the property, but so it was actually the Casper family that lived there. And I looked in our directories just to see how long they'd been at that location, and I went back to 1946 directory, the phone directory at that time, and they were listed in there. Just Mrs. Casper was listed with 2 sons, I believe. Mm-hmm. And then I went back to 1919, and it must have been her husband or maybe her father-in-law was living at that location. So
Wow.
that family lived in that spot for a long time.
Wow.
And next door to you is a home that was built by a contractor, a North St. Paul contractor, Otto Kirk.
Oh.
And he built most of the homes on the south side of 9th Avenue. So if you went up 9th Avenue, you would see the homes he built. Well, he built that home that's still located next to the museum. Mm-hmm. And that's where his family lived for a number of years. So
Wow.
yeah, it's kind of interesting to look at that. And
I did not know that.
yeah, it's a little bit of history. I always try to get that in.
Well, sure.
But the museum was at this location since 2005.
Right.
But before that, I guess we know that it was the library, the Ramsey County branch, North St. Paul Library. And when the library moved to a smaller location down at the community center, or what was the community center, I know a number of people were interested in looking at it or had proposed something, but then your organization came in, and how did that happen?
Well, my predecessor died when the board was in the middle of the process of hiring someone to succeed him. And at his memorial service, one of the members of the museum who lived in Oakdale talked to the board chair and said, "Did you know the Ramsey County Library building in North St. Paul is for sale?" And they did not. So they drove by the building and said, "This looks very good," and got in touch with the Ramsey County property managers and said, "We're interested in the old library. Can we take a look at it?"
Now, this is before you were on board.
Yeah, they were actually moving kind of in parallel tracks, working on hiring a new director, and when they found out about the library availability, they were moving on buying the building sort of simultaneously, which is an awful lot for a volunteer board to take on of a small organization. But they really felt like they needed to get both of those things in place in order for the museum to start its new incarnation, I guess.
Okay. And what attracted them to it? Do you have any idea?
Have you been in the building? When you walk in the door, either side, and you turn towards Henry Street, you see this vast open space, brick, beautiful wood, and big windows down at the end where you have a connection to the outdoors. So one of the things that they were looking for was a building that was handicap accessible. And the fact that this building was all on one level was great. That the space was open and flexible was great. The connection to the outdoors was great. And I understood immediately why they fell in love with the building when they walked through the door. When they interviewed me, at the conclusion of the interview, we all piled in our cars and we caravanned over to North St. Paul. They opened up the door and walked me into the building and went, ta-da!
Yeah.
And with my museum eyes, I looked down that vast space to the big windows at the end and thought, oh dear. Big windows in a museum gallery is not what you usually see.
Yeah.
And I thought we are going to have to do something with them.
Right.
And we finally did.
Sure. Yeah, it was a great view looking out the windows, but that's a problem for museums.
It is.
So,
It is.
yeah.
Sunlight is bad for objects. Any light is
That's
bad
right.
for objects.
Yeah.
But sunlight is particularly bad for objects. And it makes it hard to see. If you're looking into a bright light and then you turn away from it and you try and read a label or something, it can be really difficult to have your eyes adjust.
Right.
And it's harder for us older folks to do than it is for the kids, certainly.
Right. So how much space was it?
10,500 square feet is what I have been told the building is. So that's a good enough figure for me.
Sure. Yeah, that's a big area. How did that compare, or what did you have before? I guess I'm not sure about that.
The North Star Museum was founded in 1976 by this group of old Boy Scout guys from the east side of St. Paul. And what had happened is they learned that one of their friends, mentors, former leaders had died, and his family had disposed of a lifetime of scouting material. This guy had been a Boy Scout professional.
Who was that?
His name was Harry Bartelt.
Okay.
And after Harry died and they learned that his stuff was lost, they thought, well, if Harry's stuff can disappear, and he was an important guy,
Right.
what's going to happen to our stuff when we pass on? Who will remember our stories? And it was the early 1970s, the bicentennial of the American Revolution was coming up, and they were motivated to start a museum. Until we settled in North St. Paul, we had this sort of nomadic existence where we would get some borrowed space in a store or a bank. For 6 or 8 years, I think we were in the bottom level of the Dakota County Historical Society in South St. Paul. They had built themselves a new building and they weren't fully occupying it, so they donated the space to the museum.
I see.
We moved into the back end of Midwest Plastics in West St. Paul next.
Okay.
And that was a small space, but it was the first time where I think we really set it up as a gallery. I am told you had to walk in single file in lockstep through the gallery spaces, and there wasn't a lot of storage. And then we lost that space and we boxed everything up, and it went to the home of my predecessor and filled his basement. If you can imagine a cube of, maybe 15 boxes, banker's boxes long, 15 banker's boxes deep, 15 banker's boxes high. And he had a map of that cube and knew where every box was.
And he was doing that alone?
He was doing that with a lot of volunteers.
Oh, okay.
He was a volunteer himself.
Sure.
When, in 1999, we found space in the warehouse that 3M has donated to us on the east side. It was the second floor of an office block in the middle of these big truck bays and a warehouse. And it was great for us. It provided us with office space that was clean, dry, secure, and pest-free.
Right.
But no one under the age of 18 was allowed on the property because there were all these big rigs driving around and it was an insurance liability.
Sure.
So as a public space for a Scout museum, it really wasn't very good.
Right.
I tell people when they ask, I say, we have all of the St. Paul's covered because now we're in North St. Paul. We started in St. Paul, we moved to South St. Paul, then we were in West St. Paul, now we're in North St. Paul. If there was an East St. Paul, we would have had to figure out,
Right.
how to get to it. So we moved around a lot, but we never had a real home until we came to North St. Paul.
I know that building had a lot of space. It doesn't look like it has a lot of space now.
Well, when you put stuff in there, you know, it's like your own home.
Yeah.
You move out of a house and you take all the furniture out and go, wow, there's a lot of room here. But you put your stuff in there and then it doesn't look so much. The gallery space, I'm thinking, is 7,000 square feet maybe of the whole building. And we did have to close off a portion of what was open public space in the library because there was no storage.
Right.
Really in the building, just a little bit of building storage. Museums like to have as much collection storage as they have exhibit space.
Sure.
And we don't have that. But libraries and museums operate very differently. Libraries have their collection all out for the public to browse for the most part. And museums are just the opposite. Most of their stuff is in storage at any given time. Usually when you walk into a museum, everything that you see is not the entire collection. Most museums, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Including the North St. Paul Museum.
That's exactly right.
I'm amazed at, I saw your storeroom several times, and I was amazed at how you filled that up with the storage shelves and how you filled up those storage shelves.
Oh, my goodness.
And I don't see that there's much room for expansion there.
There probably isn't right now, but I also think that the size of our collection is probably a little excessive to our needs.
Too many duplicates?
Too many duplicates. Our museum, the guys who ran the museum, collected everything.
Sure.
And thought, well, you know, we'll collect this now and then we can trade it away for something better or we can sell it to support the museum or something like that. And that really is a recipe for the situation we are in now where our storage area is full to overflowing and we still have stuff coming in the door all the time.
Right.
I think the size of our collection could be reduced by a third and we wouldn't lose any of the historical record.
Yeah. That's always a difficult task, is to remove things or to what's the term you used?
Well, we use the term de-accession. I like to think of it as getting rid of your least favored child.
Yeah, right.
You know?
Well, not quite the same.
Well, okay, maybe not.
And we face the same kinds of problems at the North St. Paul Museum. How many antique bedpans do you need, for example? You know?
Exactly. However, if they were all related to important citizens and had their own stories, then you can't collect too many bedpans.
People usually don't tell about their bedpans, so we don't have many stories connected. Well, so you mentioned some of the challenges that you had when the museum was purchased, when the building was purchased. Can you think of any other things that you faced? I know there was a lot of remodeling that was done.
We have done some things. We have...
Can you give some examples of that?
Well, the nicest thing was the campfire circle that got built in the back of the museum by the back door, where we have split log benches kind of in a semicircle, and then there's a space there for a fire, or more usually we just have a charcoal fire and people are grilling marshmallows to make s'mores there. That was an Eagle project that was done by a local kid very, very early in our tenure there. We have taken what was the community room and turned it into what we call the Davis and Randall Founders Hall. And this is a place where we can honor individuals who have been significant in scouting in this region and kind of tell their stories. In the rest of the museum, we tend to tell more corporate stories, you know, of camps and of troops and organizations in Boy Scouting and Girl Scouting, or you know, councils or something like that. So this is a place to talk about the individuals who have made a significant contribution. And what we did in there is we sort of covered the walls with panels, fabric covered panels. It was a brick box that was cold and very echoey. And now it's a much warmer, nicer space. We did finally get the woodpeckered siding off.
The exterior siding.
Yeah.
I know it had holes all over the outside.
Well, I do know what the woodpeckers were after, and it makes me sad. Because, you know, woodpeckers don't eat wood. They eat bugs.
Yeah, no.
I don't want to think about it.
So the bugs were there.
Yeah. We also have added the sign on the corner which is lovely, and signs on the building, which were really important. For a long time, we were kind of sitting in that building with no signs, and people would say, oh, there's a big brick building. And that was
Right.
about all they could say about us.
Okay.
It still doesn't stop people from turning into the North St. Paul Historical Society when they come to visit us,
Right.
because your museum sign is quite magnetic.
Yeah.
It just sucks people right off the
Right.
road and into the parking lot.
We do have a number of visitors, but they usually find out that it's not the right place and they don't stay even
I
though-
know you had one group once that took the whole tour
Okay.
and then went home, and he called me on the phone 3 hours later and said, well, we took a tour of the museum in North St. Paul. And I said, yeah, we were right across the street. And
know it.
I tell people it's the cultural corner in North St. Paul,
Yeah, it is.
7th and Henry, where the Historical Society and the museum
That's
are.
right. Yeah. You didn't mention the lighting though. That's another big item.
I did not mention the lighting. Well, you know, I said I looked down the thing and there was this great open window, and that was not really what we wanted. So after going through a series of small grants to bring in somebody that tells you this is your need, and then you get another grant to have someone come in and tell you how to deal with your need, and then you get another grant to actually fix
Right.
the problem that you have to solve your need. So after a series of grants, we ended up getting an Arts and Cultural Heritage Legacy Grant from the state of Minnesota to redo our gallery lighting. When the library building was built, the architect specified this lovely wooden ceiling made out of
Right.
what looks like fir, maybe with wood laminate
Right.
beams that run all. That wood was never lit. The architect installed regular fluorescent lights in the ceiling because in a library you need good lights so that
lights,
people
sure.
can read the books and look at the books and find the books and everything. So the first thing that we needed to do was take those fluorescent lights out, because fluorescent light is more damaging than incandescent light to objects because it has ultraviolet in it, which we don't need, our eyes don't need to see, so
Sure.
get rid of ultraviolet. And then he designed a system that has 2 sets of lights. We have a series of up lights that light the ceiling for the first time. So whenever you drive past the museum in the dark, when something is going on, you'll see the murals that are on the windows, and you'll see this sort of soft golden glow behind them. It looks so beautiful now, the building, and it looks like it's no longer a library masquerading as a museum. Now it looks like a real museum. The change in lighting was just critical and super
Sure.
and totally stunning for us. The first time we turned those lights on, it was just amazing.
You mentioned the murals on over the windows now. Now that's some material that you can see the murals from outside if there's light behind.
It's a fairly lightweight knit fabric.
Oh.
And apparently you can run it right through a printer and print a photographic image on it. And then it has, in our case, we have a rod pocket at the top and a rod pocket at the bottom. You put a pipe through there and then just hang it over the window. So it blocks some of the light. It cuts the intensity of the light coming through the window and changes the whole light equation in the gallery. But it also is a wonderful interpretive device because, you know, we have Boy Scouts with a war canoe, we have Boy Scouts learning signaling,
Right.
we have Girl Scouts ready to go on a hike in camp. And I am rarely outside the building at night when the lights are on. Usually, if the lights are on and it's nighttime at the building, I'm inside. But I do love to drive past or walk outside and just look at what you can see through the windows there.
Sure.
It's beautiful.
So a lot of people assume, I guess, that you are affiliated with the Girl Scouts and the Boy Scouts. Can you explain your status regarding that?
We love them. We love the Boy Scouts. We love the Girl Scouts. Everyone affiliated with the museum has been in one or the other at one time in their life, and many of our board members have been in for many, many years. However, we are an independent organization, and that's sort of a great place to be because we can stand in the middle between them. As a history organization, I think it gives us some opportunities to both gather their history and comment upon it without being constrained by organizational policy or anything like that. They don't provide us with monetary support. We do get a lot of support from both organizations, but we are not of them. We are a separate organization entirely.
So What about your support? How do you get your support, and where does it all come from? I know you mentioned some grants that you've received.
We have been successful with grants. We have some foundations that we have been successful with. Most of our money comes from individual donors, and this is the case for most nonprofit organizations. There are big pots of money that you can access that are institutional, like from private foundations and public foundations and government and things like that. But in the end, most of your money comes from individuals, and that is true for us too. We have a robust membership program that has just changed and is designed to bring people sort of closer to the museum. We do the old annual campaigns. We're trying very hard to build a core of earned income through program. We can't really afford to give away our stuff. We have to support the building. We have to support our staff. We have to be able to buy the materials we need for the program.
Sure.
And so we have been successful in ramping up the amount of earned income that we have, but it's primarily contributed income from individuals. Members are our most important friends.
Right. So this sounds like a constant battle, this funding.
Yeah, it is. It is.
And I think that's probably true of most nonprofits.
Absolutely. I consider it to be a really great thing that we got through the recession and we still exist.
Right.
A really, truly great thing.
Tough times.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed, really.
I guess everyone.
The purses got zipped right up.
Yeah, it was interesting to look back on. It
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, it really is.
If you survive that, you can
know.
survive most things,
I
I
know.
would think.
That's what we're thinking.
Yeah, for sure. When visitors come to your museum, what can they expect to see? Or what kinds of displays do you have that would be of interest?
We have all kinds of stuff. We have added over the years a number of small new exhibits. We have patches on exhibit right now, and that was something that we didn't have for a long time.
Patches.
Boy
Explain
Scout,
that.
Boy Scout people collect patches. You know, a uniform is designed to make everyone in the organization look the same, except when you look at each individual uniform, and then you can see the ways, if you can read it, you can see the ways in which they have passed through the program. The events that they went to is in one part of their uniform. The badges that they earned might be on a sash. The stuff that's on the back of their jacket might represent other kinds of things that they have done or patches that they have traded for. These little bits of cloth are incredibly important to both Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts. I have heard both kinds of leaders tell me the kids will do anything for a patch because they just like to collect them, they like to trade them. And we didn't have really many patches on exhibit for a long time at the museum, and the collectors were like, "Where are your patches?" I said, "They're all in the back, and we have a whole lot, and one of these days we'll put them out." We finally did. We have a big kiosk now that's in the lobby because, believe it or not, the library was closed in 2003. We still have people coming in looking for the library.
Sure.
And so we created this kiosk that is supposed to give them a clue when they walk in the door, intent upon their mission, that they might have landed in the wrong place. We're working on an exhibit right now to refurbish the exhibit for our totem pole. We have a totem pole that was carved and mounted in a Boy Scout camp at Square Lake, just north of Stillwater.
Okay.
And then when that camp closed as a Boy Scout camp and they opened a new camp in Balsam Lake, Wisconsin, they took that totem pole to Balsam Lake and erected it at the new Boy Scout camp. And then when that camp moved, they left it there. And it was rescued by one of the members of the museum, and he restored it, and now we're adding some interpretation.
But that's inside.
That's inside,
Right.
yeah. We wouldn't dare put it outside now. The treasure of the museum is the Liberty Loan medallion. This is a bronze medallion about this big around that was given to the Boy Scouts in St. Paul by the Secretary of the Treasury for valiant service to their nation during the Second Liberty Loan campaign in October of 1917, where the Boy Scouts in St. Paul sold $6.8 million worth of war bonds in 1917 dollars.
That's all right. Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah, it really
It's
is.
amazing.
It really is. I don't know everything about this yet, but I'm determined.
I remember something else from the museum that I wasn't sure how that fit in, but that's the moose head.
Oh,
What?
Bruce.
Is that Bruce the moose?
That's Bruce
Oh,
the moose,
okay.
yeah. The moose head was at Camp Nibel, which was the Balsam Lake Boy Scout camp,
Okay.
and the moose was on display in what had been the lodge building, along with a sailfish or a swordfish, one of those trophy fish that
Okay.
has things that break off very easily if you're
I
not
see.
careful with it. And when I got to the museum, when I first started in '05, I was reading through all of the records that I could find for the museum, and I found reference to a moose head and a sailfish or a swordfish. And I had been all around the space, the 3M space, looking for something like that. I knew it wasn't there. And at the grand opening of the museum, a former member kind of sidled up to me and said very quietly, "Well, now that you have a building, I guess I can bring the moose head back." And I said, "You have it?" And he said, "Well, yeah. My predecessor was ready to toss it when they got evicted from Midwest Plastics
Sure.
because it was too big to put in his basement." So this guy rescued it and lent it to some friends of his, and they hung it on their dining room wall, where it sat for 10 years, presiding over all family state occasions.
Can't imagine having a moose head hanging in your dining room.
Well, as big as that one is, I think it would take up an awful lot of space,
would
but
think
they
so.
were happy to have it.
Really?
And so now he's the mascot of our junior membership program, Club Bruce, and
Okay.
we have tied ourselves kind of to the DNR Moose Mortality Project. There's
Sure.
a group of scientists in the DNR that are doing research on the severe reductions in population in the
Right.
Minnesota moose, and so Bruce has kind of become the spokesmoose for,
Spokesmoose.
yeah, the spokesmoose.
Oh boy.
He's a spokesmoose for the museum too.
I see.
Mm-hmm.
Are there other programs that you wanted to mention before we run out of time?
Sure. For 6 or 7 years, we have been offering merit badge workshops for Boy Scouts, and we run them all year round. And we bring boys from all over the metro area, from St. Cloud. They come up from Rochester to go to these things. We bring a lot of people to North St. Paul that would never have reason to get off of 36 if it wasn't for the museum. And that's been very successful. We fill most of the workshops. We're turning people away because we want to do it well. So, some classes are quite small. And it's gotten very, very popular. We've been doing lots of things for Girl Scouts, and we have started an overnight program at the museum, which thus far has only been taken advantage of by Girl Scouts, and they have had a wonderful time there.
Good.
We've got a quarterly program for Girl Scouts called S'mores with Juliet, which is an opportunity to come to the museum and learn more about Juliet Gordon Low, the founder of Girl Scouts, and about Girl Scout history and traditions.
She was from England?
She was from Georgia.
Oh, Georgia. Okay.
Yeah, she married an Englishman.
Oh, that's what I
And
was
she
thinking.
lived in England for a very long time,
Sure.
where she met Robert Baden-Powell, the founder of Scouters,
Oh, okay.
of Boy Scouts.
I see.
And that's she became a Girl Guide leader in England, and that's the idea that she brought back to America.
Okay. Well, we just have a little time left, and I was going to ask you, is there a fee for anyone visiting the museum?
If you are a casual drop-in visitor, we will not ask you for a dime. We are charging for most of our programs, but if you just come in off the street, you are welcome to look around the museum and ask us any questions that you want. We're a membership organization. We talked about the money issue, but we won't put pressure on anyone to pony up.
And you invite people even if they didn't have any background in scouting?
Well, yeah. One of the things that we are really intent on doing is putting Boy Scouting and Girl Scouting in the larger historical context.
Sure.
So we want to make sure that they understand that this Liberty Loan Medallion was not some isolated thing. This is part of the Boy Scouts' effort to serve their country in time of war. And so that's really important
Sure.
to us. So if you have an interest in history at all, you will find a lot of what we're doing very, very interesting.
Okay, yeah. Well, I'm sure anyone watching this will have learned more about the Scouting Museum, and I think a lot of people living in North St. Paul have never been there yet. And so I would hope that they would pay you a visit and learn something about scouting at the same time.
We'd love to see them.
Okay. Well,
We would.
Thank you, Claudia, for being on the program. And
Oh.
another 10 years, we'll
Do it again.
get you back.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks very much
You're
for having
welcome.
me.
We're out of time on this month's show. Join us again next month when we'll bring you more news about North St. Paul. I'm Paul Anderson, speaking for everyone at the City of North St. Paul. Thank you for watching.